We live in a fast-paced world that's not good for us. The encouragement to treat this weekend as a pilgrimage means that we need to slow down. The idea that we heard last night of Jesus making his way to Jerusalem and stopping from village to village, and although he was ready to go through Jericho, he stopped. It's because we need to put a pause in our day. That's why it's a commandment. Keep holy the Sabbath day, to make it a day reserved for God. Because if we don't, we are going to buy into the fast food mentality. And folks, God does not use a microwave. He uses a crock pot. Because a crock pot makes you slow down. This crock pot makes you realize that God wants to take some time with you on this weekend because you're so busy. You're so busy. You're like running around. I mean, it was amazing for me just to see how busy we can be. And right before we came out, we, the priests, we're always rushing between masses. It's hard. Mass to mass to mass. We have to remember, and that's why I'm so grateful that the priests are here. They're taking time out of their crazy schedule just to be with you and to remind themselves that you people, you're not the hope of tomorrow. You're the hope for today. And therefore, we need to take time and do the most important thing that we can do today. And you know what that is? Celebrate Mass. There are times even in my life, even though I'm such a darn holy priest. Why do people laugh? What's going on with that? But we'll all admit that while we strive for holiness, it's not going to be found in the busyness of committees or meetings or running around this, that, and the other. You know what's going to make us holy? This time. In fact, we all, priests, have to remind ourselves, and hopefully you can be reminded of this too, that the most important thing you can do today is Mass. Because this makes us rest in God and he rests in us. But we're so busy. It's so easy to forget. That's why if we treat this weekend like a pilgrimage, we will learn, as Jesus did, to stop every now and then. But Jesus, although he was busy, showed that he was on the run, but for a good reason. In fact, the first reading showed how the Israelites, they were on the run too. They were all running from people who were going to harm them. Isn't that what we heard in the scriptures? How Jesus was on the run because there were people who wanted to kill him for doing good work? Whatever. And we hear how the Israelites, they were on the run. People were chasing them. And so in a sense, busyness is good as long as we know in what direction we are running and from whom we are running. You know the idea of a pilgrimage that we heard yesterday? This idea of a journey from one place to the other. It's because we want you all to be busy in the business of Jesus, to run to him. Because if you're not running to him, then you might be running away from him. And if you are running to him, it's only because you're running away from something that's bad for you. I mean, that's just kind of common sense. But common sense isn't so common anymore. And so what I'd like to do is just ask you to think to yourself, what might you be running from today? Maybe we are running from really encountering Jesus himself. I'm so grateful that we had that image of Zacchaeus, because I like him, because he was short too. And the fact is, he could have, as you heard Mark just so beautifully say, he could have been somewhere else. He could have been like, whatever, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to go somewhere else. I don't like crowds, especially crowds that don't like me. But he didn't. He ran to Jesus, which meant he was running away from sin. He ran away from an old life, which was one of deception, to one of grace. And that's what Christ is trying to do now. Run away from the deceit and the gossip that wanted to kill him from the Pharisees, the same way the Israelites were running from the Pharaoh's evil ways to enslave them. We can be so busy that we can be running around in circles. You know, like a hamster in a cage. Did you ever see them? They're cute, but stupid. You are going nowhere. In fact, the scriptures even call us on it. They say, you all are running around acting like busybodies. You're doing nothing. Nothing productive. We are called to be busy in the business of saving souls, which means we need to run from one life and run to another. And that's hard to do because that means we are going to have to make a decision today, a choice, because you're chosen. Which path are you going to choose? Am I going to still be with those people who do me great harm spiritually by doing bad things, whether it be gossip, whether it even be something completely immoral, physically, emotionally, or spiritually immoral? And that's why I need to run to Jesus. It's not easy to do because we have a ton of excuses. You know what the biggest excuses that I had when I was growing up? Not physically, that is, but when I was younger and trying to figure out what God might be calling me to, I knew he was calling me to the priesthood very early in my life, but I was like, no, thank you. My brother should be the priest. He's the nice one in the family. Besides, I grew up not really doing priestly things. I grew up in the 80s. You know, that's a beautiful era. When Michael Jackson was still black and Madonna was still a virgin. It was just a great time. But I was too busy doing other things and being completely distracted. And here's the real reason why I didn't want to be a priest. I wasn't ready for it. But you know what's really interesting about this vocation, this call, which you have one too, even if you're not going to be a priest, is that you heard Mark Hart say it last night. It is not about when Jesus is going to come on Saturday night. No, because Jesus is with us right now, and he's going to be perfectly with us right now. Please don't wait until tonight to give yourself to God. Give yourself to God right now. But the problem is we're going to say, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. No kidding. So when will be a good time? And so we'll busy ourselves to distract ourselves so that we'll never have time. You know who else was busy? You know who else wasn't ready? The Jewish people. Proven through a very important symbol, which I love so much. It's the symbol of food. Because food, in this case, was unleavened bread, wasn't it? They had to make it very clear, very specific. Unleavened bread. That meant that it wasn't quite finished rising yet. And we can be so impatient, we sometimes don't even wait for the chocolate chip cookies to bake. We eat the dough raw. That's what it was going to kind of be like. Senza sugar, butter, and chocolate chips. But they were going to eat the unleavened bread. In fact, they had to bake the unleavened bread because they were, quote unquote, on the run away from slavery and a life of grace. You can see how they're moving. They are busy trying to find God, leave slavery, to the point where the leaven didn't even kick in just yet. You know what that means? They weren't ready. They weren't ready. But God called them anyway. You today may be saying, I wasn't even ready to come on this trip. I'm not spiritually prepared. I'm not really ready to give my life to Christ. Guess what? You're the perfect candidate that God calls. The reason why you're here is not because you are ready. This ain't a hotel for saints, folks. This is a hospital for sinners, folks. And the reason why you want to be healed, the reason why you want to be healed is not because you are already healed. It's because you're broken. And therefore, God wants to call you out of this life and into another one. And I realize that you might not be ready. But that's okay. God is very patient. There was at one point in my seminary vocation discernment where I just kept thinking to myself, I really can't be a priest. I really can't commit my life to Christ. I'm a weirdo. It is true. I don't know why you people are laughing right now. Or maybe I pushed a button in you and you're weirdos too. But I just didn't grow up doing Jesus-y things. I just didn't. I was kind of normal, just smaller than normal. And I was not really into Christianity all that much. I have 2 black belts in martial arts, and one of them is in full contact stick and knife fighting. So if you asked what I did before I became a priest, I used to beat people up with sticks. That's what I did. And I was also a choreographer for an award-winning breakdancing group. And so you take a guy like that, and the next logical step is priesthood, right? And the next logical step after that is cooking show. I wasn't ready for any of this stuff. But I had to do something. I had to do something that I'm going to invite you all to do. Choose to trust in Jesus. Choose to trust in him. You may think to yourself, I don't know if I can be all like, yeah, Jesus, I love you. I don't think everyone here is ready to become a saint instantly. In fact, I know so. That's why you're here. Because if you were a saint, you'd be dead and in heaven. And maybe you're not fully committed even to begin to become a saint. Because you're thinking to yourself, I'm not ready to run to Jesus. And you know what that means? It means you're just stuck in a different kind of life that's far away from him. I need you to consider in what direction you're running. Maybe even to ask yourself, what makes me busy? Am I being busy about the business of Jesus? Or am I busy doing things that are taking me farther away from him? Because while we know certainly that this is truly a hospital for sinners, I knew that about God, but I had to get to a point in my life where I could say to him, I am going to choose to follow you, God. And I was very vulnerable. I remember going to my spiritual director, saying to him, I don't think I want to do this because I'm afraid that I would do more damage than good for the church. It's a pretty honest assessment, especially when we acknowledge, and we're not going to bury this, we're going to acknowledge the fact that sometimes even us priests have made some bad choices. But that doesn't mean that God has abandoned us. You have made bad choices. We call them sins. But that doesn't mean God has abandoned you. He's still looking for you. Your objective is to run to him because we know he has a life for you. A life that's better than one of slavery and one to freedom, like the Egyptians were enslaving the Israelites, and like the Pharisees who wanted to just take over Jesus. And so you saw Jesus on the run, a good run in the right direction, a run to follow God's will. So I eventually brought it to my spiritual director that I was really doubting whether or not even God existed. I was doubting whether he was calling me to be a priest. I could barely fit in vestments, for God's sakes. And I'm kind of weird, and priests are supposed to be, and I'm kind of not like that all the time. And then I came across a quote that hopefully helps you as it did help me. Because it helped me to put back in perspective that each one of us on this weekend, and whoever's alive, you are all on a pilgrimage. You need to take time and ask yourself, in what direction am I running? Am I running to Jesus to do God's will? Or am I still stuck in the slavery of sin? And so this quote that I came across was so helpful. It simply said, every saint had a past. Every sinner has a future. Every saint had a past. Every sinner has a future. And we're not going to wait. Now, we choose. As last night we hungered for the Eucharist to be in us, now you pilgrimage to this aisle to receive him in you. And even though your leaven may not be ready, God is calling you now. And so, brothers and sisters, leavened or not, Jesus, here I come.